Appreciate you're familiar with the format and the approach. Any questions for me before we begin? Okay, let's talk about the order. So is there any particular order folks want to go in? Otherwise, I'll just go in the order on my schedule, which has St. Anselm's, Penn State, UMass, Wisconsin, and Marist. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, very good. So let's do it this way. I'll just read a short summary so everyone's familiar with the format. After I'm done, if we can from there on in continue with the simulation so everyone's in character. And when we're done, I'd like to talk to each of the 5 of you just to share feedback on how things went, and certainly if you may have any questions for me as well. Okay, is everybody good? All heads are nodding. That's awesome. Much appreciated. Okay. Okay, so here's how we'll proceed forward. Imagine that you are an employee of the company whose case you've been studying. You're at a meeting in which people are discussing the issue. However, no one has brought up ethics. There's a pause in the conversation. You have 90 seconds in which to convince the others at the meeting that there are ethical issues that need to be addressed. You don't have to argue for a solution. You just need them to see that there are serious ethical issues here. And as you're all prepared to do, one member each from each team will provide that argument, okay? So for the sake of things, I'll just kind of keep time. Give me a moment. Fortunately, I have teenagers who teach me how to do these things on iPhones. Okay. So Hunter, when you're ready, why don't we go ahead and begin?
Perfect. Sounds good. So, hello, everyone. I'm glad we've all gathered here today to discuss the issue of sustainability and fast fashion and the fast fashion industry. We at H&M are, of course, one of the biggest fast fashion companies in the world. And although I love the dialogue that we have going on here, none of us seem to have mentioned the ethics so far and the ethical responsibility that we at H&M have to not just our consumers, but to the planet. At H&M, we have a mission statement, which says that we invest in people, communities, innovative ideas, and drive long-lasting positive change and improved living conditions. So we definitely have an ethical responsibility, according to our mission statement, to improve our environmental sustainability practices as a company, which is driven by that mission statement. Not just that, but also because as human beings, individuals, and a corporation of planet Earth, we have an ethical responsibility to the planet, which itself has intrinsic value. I think going forward, we can definitely become more aligned with our mission statement. And I look forward to working with all of you to do that. And I love the dialogue that we have had going on so far in regards to this process. Thank you.
Good. Everything. Okay. Catherine, if you're okay, we'll go ahead with you for the Penn State team next. I'm ready to begin when you are.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm ready too, so I'll just get started. All right, I'm so sorry, but I have to stop us here. We're talking about this neighborhood and how it's financially viable and legal, but not one of us has mentioned the ethics. Mentioned that when people hear about a neighborhood developed by a company, they're going to think about corporate towns and all the negative implications. They're going to think about a time where employees had no voice, employees had no privacy, and companies unfairly tried to control everything. We need to make sure as we're developing this new neighborhood that we're acknowledging those past issues, learning from them so we don't make those mistakes again. We also need to look at who is Google, what's important to us. We have principles that we're committed to, and we need to make sure that they're more than just words to us. When we think about developing this neighborhood, we need to think about our values, things like care, fairness, commitment, transparency. We need to take care of the larger community with this neighborhood. We need to be fair in how we allocate housing, and we need to be transparent and honest in how we communicate our plans. Any company can say that these values are important to them, but it's important that we go the extra mile, that we live by these values and let them guide us like we say that they do. Because if we don't, it doesn't matter that this plan is legal, and it doesn't matter that it's financially viable, because if it's not ethical, it's not going to last. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Hey, Malcolm, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Really good. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Give me one more moment. Okay. Hey, Malcolm, I am ready when you are. Go ahead and start when you're able.
Okay, starting now. So today's ethics are tomorrow's laws, and acting with integrity now can help you get ahead of the regulatory curve to pursue just profits. As a special purpose acquisition company, Queen's Gambit Growth Capital is in the unique position to help facilitate the overall democratization of the market. And we've identified three primary stakeholders you must consider in an ethical analysis. So first is the retail investor, and they have this newfound opportunity to participate in entry-level market who has typically been reserved by the traditional sophisticated investor. And to mitigate risks, you have an ethical obligation to disclosure and transparency. Next is the target companies. So as a SPAC, you're helping these target companies sort of successfully transition in the market space. And we want to incorporate transparent disclosure regimes, robust financial controls, and a culture of ethical and legal compliance that integrates a sort of dynamic diversity, equity, and inclusion guidelines. And lastly is the SPAC sponsors. This is profitable, there's benefits here, and you want them to be around for a long time. So not addressing these risks can sort of help create a SPAC bubble that would pop and be regulated out of existence. So we recommend that you take a nuanced approach that includes, that addresses your ethical obligations, as well as being legally compliant and financially viable. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Christopher from the Wisconsin team, are you ready, sir?
Yep.
Okay, just give me another moment. Okay.
I'm glad that here at Apple,
Christopher, I'm ready to begin when you are. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm glad that here at Apple, we've had this series of meetings discussing the financial and legal aspects of our electronic waste programs. As you all know, what we do with phones, computers, and other electronic components once our consumers are done using them. But I feel like we're all overlooking the ethical implications of what we've been discussing here. After all, 40% of the electronic waste that we send to contractors right now that we think is going to be recycled in the US is being shipped to factories in the developing world with terrible environmental and labor standards. I mean, these companies are using child labor. They're paying only 15 cents per hour for their workers, and they're promoting a lot of, or they're using a lot of toxic chemicals that are getting into the environment and not only harming the health of workers, but also hurting the nearby communities. And so for a company like Apple, like us, where, you know, we're trying to go carbon neutral in the next 10 years, and we're trying to reduce the amount of mining necessary to get materials for the components of our phones, it seems like on this one step, we have a blind spot. And right now we're kind of offshoring responsibility for what happens to our phones once our consumers are done using them. And so not only does this create somewhat of a misrepresentation right now with how we're, you know, promoting this green, sustainable image to consumers, but right now we're also instituting a lot of harms to people who are effectively our contract workers. So I think right now we have an imperative, we have an opportunity, and we have an imperative to reduce our reliance on these third-party contractors and find some other way forward.
Thank you. Okay, Megan, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready when you are.
Really good. Okay, I'm not ready yet.
Okay.
One more moment.
Okay, no problem.
Megan, I'm ready now. Go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. In this meeting, we need to discuss the ethical implications of what actually happened in the aftermath of the 737 MAX plane crashes. We have talked about our ethical standpoints and culture for our company. However, we haven't implemented any of our policies fully. We need to stand by our mission statement, which reads, people working together as a global enterprise for aerospace industry leadership. What we must understand are the major ethical repercussions that the crashes had on us. We need to correct our own inspections of planes and not be influenced negatively by our competitors within the industry. We can't enable ourselves to produce our products at a rate that compromises our customers' safety. In addition, we need to strengthen the lines of communication within our own company. When the whistleblower brought to light the problems with 737 planes, the warnings were ignored, and this cannot happen again. The public and the industry see us, Boeing, as a leader, making us eligible to lead by example, which we have not been doing well. If we do not take the necessary steps now to fix our problems that are affecting Boeing, the decision will be taken out of our hands, not only by our shareholders, but customers, media, and other competitors within the industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Okay. Okay, so first of all, I generally regard that the 90-second portion of the competition is probably the most challenging. It's very difficult to take a complex case, particularly one where you know a lot and you've studied it, and reduce it down and then reduce it down again. And 90 seconds goes by in a blink of an eye. So it's really critical that you understand what your points are, because you can't even just talk bullet points. You can only talk single word bullet points. So each of you did a really good job of boiling it down. I came away, even though among you, there are teams I'm familiar with because I've seen you before, and there are teams I have not, but I know where you came out. So really strong effort by everybody. If you would just indulge me, sort of a side story. When I was in the Navy, I used to stand watch for 24 hours at a time. And there was a guy named Jack Vile. He was a reactor operator. He was very good at what he did. Amongst the things Jack was also very good at was drawing cartoons. And oftentimes if Vile was looking at you or kind of going back and forth between this sheet of paper and looking at you or talking to you, it's because he was drawing a cartoon and you were in it, which I found myself, fortunately or unfortunately, to have been the subject of that on more than one occasion. So I found myself thinking of that while I was going back and forth between talking and taking notes. So thanks for indulging me the fact that I couldn't really look at you while you were talking. I wasn't drawing your picture. I'm not a very good cartoonist, but I need to take notes. So I want to talk about each of you as we kind of go through things. So first of all, Hunter, a couple of things. I really like the fact that you hit your mission statement, okay? It is such a central part of who a company is and what they're about. And it's really where not only we say, here's why we exist, it also tells in the same point, how we're going to compete and how we're going to go to market. I appreciate there are teams, and there may be one of you here in the audience that are in business school, but that is such a critical part of understanding who you are as a business, how you go to the market and what you're all about. It's encapsulated in that mission statement. Good companies have their mission statements literally painted on the wall as you walk in the lobby, so employees see it every day, and every customer who comes in the building understands who and what you're about at the same time. Okay. So Hunter, you mentioned the key purpose of what you have proposed is to improve your environmental practices and to reinforce and realize that community responsibility. And in particular, you stress the intrinsic value of planet Earth, okay? Those are excellent points, and I relate with them entirely. I liked how you did things, okay? A couple of points of things I want you to be aware of. So as I mentioned before, 90 seconds goes by really quick, okay? When and if you find yourself in a similar scenario, and you will, okay? Because I see it almost monthly, okay? You wanna make your point in the first 10 seconds. The reason is, and it sounds like a Dilbert joke, but it's true, okay? The more senior you get in the organization and the higher up you go, the shorter your attention span. So you want to be able to make your point, very quickly, when you have a chance to capture your audience. Do not wait 45, 50 seconds or heck a minute into your discussion before you make your key point, okay? So, here's the issue, here's what we need to do about it, and here's why, okay? So keep that in mind. It's challenging, again, but always remember your audience attention span is shorter than you think. And you want to make that point, clearly up front, okay? Hunter, good work, nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, Catherine. Catherine, I really, really like the way you performed in the simulation, okay? Because we talked about, as I mentioned in the introduction, here's where we're kind of at, okay? We're in this sort of discussion or conversation, and you stayed right in that and stepped right in that with the way you went through your discussion. I heard the ethics and the challenges of the company controlling everything, really acknowledging past lessons and considering values, the need and essential purpose and mission, take care of the larger community. And I really like the way you hit values, honesty, transparency, and the guidance to fulfill those things. And if it's not aligned with ethical principles and values, it will not last. So I thought you made your points really well. I really like the way you stayed in the simulation, and your pace as you went through things was real good. So good work on organization. I really did not think of anything aside from, again, be deliberate about staking out what the ethical issue is, and in turn what you're going to do about it. I thought you did a good job of that. Again, just make sure you hit that soon. If I'm 30, 45 seconds into your discussion and I'm not clear yet, I'm gasping for air, wondering why we're talking about this, okay? Okay, Malcolm. The line that resonated with me, and I really liked it, okay? And by the way, I'm an R&D guy, okay? I'm not a marketing guy. I'm about facts and data. But this one, you grabbed me. Today's ethics are tomorrow's laws, okay? On face value, it's sort of an empty statement, but it really nails in one short brief, why this is important, okay? I like that a lot. You talked about your three stakeholders, nice job. The retail investor, your target companies, and your sponsors. And I was able to capture, as you outlined for each of them, the obligations of transparency and compliance, the culture of legal and ethics, and sustainable over time for your sponsors. So well organized, well stated, and I like your key point right up front, ethics are tomorrow's laws, okay? That was a great way to frame your argument and be impactful. I like that. Finally, Christopher, no, actually, I apologize, not finally. Okay, Christopher, you and I had a chance to meet yesterday. I really like your topic. You impressed upon me yesterday what a significant issue this is, and I learned something about Apple. And Christopher, when I went to business school for 3 years, I got so tired of hearing about Apple. But in your discussion yesterday, I was glad to hear about Apple again, because you guys grabbed my heart with that discussion about how important an issue this is, okay? Another thing about talking to old guys like me, we're not from the same generation you are, and consequently, because of those generational differences, we may have different values. However, old guys like me have kids that are your age or similar, okay? And we care about them more than we care about ourselves. So when you appeal to the values that are specific to your generation, even with old guys like me, you get our attention, okay? Because we identify and relate to that, and that's true of all of you in the topics you discussed. I like that, okay? So you talked about 3 key points. Child labor, pollution, and exploitation wages. Those are the right points to hit for this audience and the right points to hit, in particular, what the ethical issues and trade-offs are with what Apple is doing. And of course, in God's green earth, would Apple ever let the world know, that they're towing the line on those 3 issues with the way they do business? It's completely inconsistent with their brand ID, okay? So your description, you get a blind spot. Blind spots by definition are ethical issues. So I like that as well. One thing I want each of you to think about is this phrase, following from something Christopher mentioned. He said that he used the word imperative, okay? An imperative is consistent with what we refer to in business as a call to action. So a call to action is a good way to grab attention of key decision makers when you're presenting and advocating for things to be done differently, a change, or offering a significant investment, okay? So in that word imperative, you comply a call to action, in turn then you deliver what needs to be done, okay? So You know, this reduced dependence on third-party contractors, that was what your imperative was, or as I described it, your call to action. Be sure to come back and tie that back to the fact that we're talking about an ethical issue, and that ethical issue in turn is that contradiction between Apple's brand image and what their what their mission statement is about, or their company and brand values, and these otherwise completely contradictory exploitive practices, which don't make any sense for Apple. Okay, finally, Megan, let's see. Okay, Megan, I like the way your presentation was organized, and you had a great pace. It's very easy to follow you, and that's hard in a 90-second forum where your tendency is to rush and to talk fast and to try to get a lot in. Nice job with the way you talked through things and you presented it. Whether it may not have felt this way in your heart, which is racing, but you had a good pace, you had good eye contact, and you had good voice inflection. So the ethical implications of 737, of course, I'm familiar with that from the team's discussion yesterday. And you had me talking with my brother, who's an engineer at Intel last night, about the same thing. You know, you definitely, I really valued that discussion, because one of the things that's key, and I want each of you to know this, know your audience, who you're talking to. It is a big deal, particularly when you're young, because you don't know where they've been, what other experiences they've had. And similarly, they don't know you. You know, we don't know each other in the journeys that brought us here, okay? So my point is, and don't hear this critically because it's not intended that way, I have to be aware of this as well. Always be humble when you engage with folks who you A, want to influence, but B, don't know well, because you don't know who they are, and you don't know what else, you don't know what they know about what you're talking about, okay? That's why among my favorite phrases in businesses, you learn a lot more by, I take that back. You never learned anything by talking, okay? So be conscious of the fact when you're talking to an audience you don't know, that you don't know what their backgrounds are. And Megan's team yesterday had a challenge because they're, unbeknownst to her, she had 3 engineers in the audience, 2 of us who are nuclear engineers, another one who's worked in the airline industry, and she's talking about the 737. Good Lord. Okay, so I thought you guys did a good job of managing and balancing those things, and you never crossed or towed the line, you know, in terms of overstepping that acknowledgement of what you were experts in versus what you were simply trying to present. That was very good, okay? I apologize, I need my glasses to read my own handwriting. Okay, yeah, so your key point, you know, what you cannot do and how you've got to strengthen alliances, and you've got to be true to and honor whistleblowers. That isn't, if you stomp your foot like Mr. Ed, and none of you know who Mr. Ed is, Maria May. He's an old horse character that when he wanted to make a point, he would stomp his foot. But that was your foot stomping moment when you said, you know, you follow and listen to whistleblowers, okay? It is, whistleblowers are a gem. And unfortunately, when moral issues come up in corporate America, rarely does a whistleblower show up to say, hey, this is a problem, you know? So when you have one show up, you want to honor, protect, and listen to whistleblowers regardless, you know, the trade-offs, okay? I really like the way you framed it. You know, we must take steps or they'll be taken out of our hands. That is an excellent way to distinguish the importance and the trade-offs and the risks of the business. The one thing I want you to be more deliberate about and be conscious of this is I want you to clearly and explicitly state your ethical issue. For me, I did not hear you do that, okay? But I clearly understood what the ethical issue was, and that way that you did, like some of the other teams I mentioned did, boom, here it is. You know, if you had hit me over the head with a baseball bat, that's what I needed, but it works really well in a 90-second format. You must take the steps or they will be taken out of your hands, okay? I really like everyone. This is a very challenging forum to do this, okay? So hit your points right up front. You're talking to old guys with short attention spans, okay? Frame your argument in a way that is impactful in as few words as possible, okay? And as I mentioned, you know, Malcolm's example was really good, okay? Today's ethics are tomorrow's laws, and just like Megan did in her example, you know, we must take steps or we'll be taken out of our hands. Those are great ways to frame ethical challenges and trade-offs, okay? Anyway, I really enjoyed each of your feedback. Any questions for me on things? Okay, good. Couple of things. I don't know that we will get to see each other again. You know, usually when we do this, it's in person, and it's a pleasure for me to meet and talk with folks when we're sort of outside the simulation also. First and foremost, thank you for coming to this. Regardless of how it turns out for anybody, I hope you found it valuable, time well spent, and the preparation and work and possibly at times confusing and frustrating moments you endured getting here were worth it, okay? I really enjoyed and was impressed by the efforts each of you made and the ways you presented your arguments today. So good luck with everything. If you need to contact me for any reason, go through the group to do so. I'm happy to engage one-on-one or follow up if something comes along, okay? One more time, any questions for me on anything? Okay, really good. Hey, Maria, if you can just hang out for a minute, and if the other folks can drop off. Everybody, let's thank Chung for his support throughout. Great job.
Thank you.
It is, we never appreciate what goes on in the background, what everything is. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.